Well, Valerie Landis, what about that? Because now you're paying hotel tax in Illinois as of February of this year. What about these other regulations and rules? Did you know about them, and are you complying with them?
I may not be like most hosts, but I really took Airbnb as full on. I researched it, I watched YouTube videos, I found out how to become a great host. I didn't just haphazardly do it because of a news solicitation or an ad. I actually learned about it through other hosts that were having a great success. So I took it on as a project and literally figured it out. And ways to make hosts have great experiences. I mean, I'm telling them where to shop, where to spend their money, what restaurants to dine in, what's hip in Chicago.
But did you research all the regulations that exist to date on it? And not to put you on the spot here, but are you complying with them?
I'm more familiar now, but I don't quite know if I fall in normal categories since it is my own home. It's not any different than having a guest come visit me that's my own family members, so in my eyes. But you know, as far as the regulations, Airbnb's been really active in promoting their website on restrictions in each city, so you can learn about it.
But is it incumbent, Will Burns, for individuals like Valerie who are learning about it to find out about it themselves? Is Airbnb responsible at all for the situations that Alderman Smith and Hopkins are bringing up?
I can't speak to the raucous houses that they're describing, but I will say two things. One is that Airbnb wants to be regulated. We're here in the city of Chicago because we want to be regulated. We are paying taxes. We're paying the same 17.4% that the hotels are paying. Airbnb remits that to the city, the state, and in the county on May 1st. So we're supportive of that. The question is, what kind of regulation? We want regulations that allow people like Valerie to rent out a private room in their house. The vacation rental ordinance, quite frankly, is extremely restrictive. Extremely restrictive and very difficult. It's a cumbersome process that requires you to live in the right residential zone. It requires you to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and get a special use permit. And for folks who want to do this casually from time to time to make a little bit of extra money, they're not going to do that. So we need to have the right regulations in place so we can deal with the quality of life issues. As an alderman, I get it. No one wants to deal with those issues, and we need to find a solution, and we're eager to do that with you.
Alderman Hopkins, what does the new or altered ordinance that's being considered say?
Well, one thing we're insisting on is that condominium high-rises and apartment high-rises, especially in the downtown area, would have the ability to put their address on a list that Airbnb would prohibited to list any unit in that building. That's one thing that I think is going to solve a lot of the problems that we've had in downtown. If a condo board says you can't do this in our building, Airbnb should not have the ability to take someone and list them and advertise and get around the law. We also think licensure is key. We do have a licensure requirement right now. There's about 6,000 Airbnb listings in the city of Chicago. There's less than 200 licenses out there. So compliance is dismal right now. We have to bring the compliance rate up so we can go after the bad operators, so we can go after the people that are flaunting the law.
Valerie Landis, does this, do these proposals concern you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just an everyday average girl who wants to earn some extra money. And so I think that a lot of these policies just don't make sense. We need things that are simple and easy, and we'll comply. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I pay my taxes, I vote, I, pay my parking tickets. So it's just really hard when the licensing hoops are it's a 4 or 5 day process, and then you're lucky if you get that done.
So we don't really licensing doesn't have to be that difficult, but it does have to have, the neighbors need to have some way of controlling proliferation in their neighborhoods. When you buy a home, you buy it expecting to enjoy the fact that you live in a residential neighborhood. You can't choose to say that, oh, this person who's now invested in a property, and instead of renting to a neighbor, rents to a bunch of people creating
essentially
parties.
Creates a hotel in a neighborhood.
It creates a hotel in the neighborhood. And you know what? I didn't sign up for that when I bought my home. I don't know if Brian did. I don't even know if you did or whatever. But most neighbors have not signed up for that. That's why we have zoning.
Does the ordinance that is under consideration address that? These homes that are being bought by individuals specifically to be used as Airbnbs?
The ordinance that's on the table right now is deficient in many ways, but the primary ways it's deficient is, first of all, it provides no way to stop proliferation. So, for example, under the ordinance as written right now, 100 people in a condo building, in a condo of 150 units, 100 of them could rent their units not up to 90 days a year, that's almost every weekend of a year, to total strangers, and there would be no control over it. So
You're
that's
talking about
just-
city ordinance here, not Airbnb regulations in terms of renting out for more than 90 days. Is that right?
Right. So therefore, there's no way to stop proliferation. There's no way to control the environment around you when you have invested in your home. And there's very limited means of discipline.
Well, Will Burns, if Airbnb wants to be regulated, how can it cooperate with cities like Chicago to ensure that neighborhoods aren't destroyed by one individual that buys a home and turns it into an Airbnb?
Sure. I mean, so first of all, there are a number of tools that the city already has in the toolbox to enforce the municipal code against nuisances. And so we're eager to have a conversation about how do we make those tools more robust. Now, I will say this. There are a lot of condo associations that say that you can't have a pet in your house. But when you go to buy a pet at a pet store, do you have to certify that your condo association allows you to have that dog or cat?
Oh.
That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
I think this is a lot different.
And
you're
you're asking us to enforce the rules of the condo association. The condo association has a responsibility for doing
Okay,
that.
but when it comes to just individual homes, Will, and we're talking about something a little bit different than condo associations. When you say that you're ready to have that conversation, is that conversation taking place, and how can Airbnb cooperate?
Well, there's some things that we've done in other countries. There's a good neighbor quality tool that's been rolled out in Tokyo, and so we're looking at a number of tools that have been used in other places to perhaps use in the Chicago context so that neighbors can give us information about bad actors, and we can work to get them off the site. Airbnb has removed people from their platform in other cities based on these kinds of issues in the past, and so we want to be good neighbors. We want to be part of the community. We have partnerships with the Chicago Urban League, LISC Chicago, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, because we believe in neighborhood development and we want to be good
Well,
partners.
what would you two like to see from Airbnb?
Well, since he brought up the pet analogy, we can compare Airbnb to someone else operating in this space, Uber. Uber would never hire a driver who didn't have a driver's license. They ask that question first. It's very important that they adhere to those regulations, clearly. The same thing applies here. We've had documented cases where Airbnb hosts have told their guests that you have to tell the doorman at the high-rise building that you're my cousin from out of town because the building has a rule against Airbnb type of operation. So there's a variety of loopholes that they use to skirt the existing regulations. If you live in a condo high-rise, you don't want it to become a hotel. If you live in a single-family neighborhood, you don't want the house next door to turn into Animal House and have Bluto and Otter and the boys with a beer party every weekend. It's very important that we have the means to control and regulate this. We're not trying to stop this industry. What we're trying to do is treat it as any business. You need to be licensed, you need to be regulated, and we as the enforcing mechanism have to have a way to go after the bad apples.
Valerie, you have become what's called a super host, not only because you get great reviews, but because you sell out so much. As you're listening to the alderman here saying that it needs to be tightened on several fronts, do you agree? Because you've become a very visible voice for the Airbnb industry, although you're not paid by them, are you, to promote it? You just are a fan of being able to do this.
Yeah, I would have to politely disagree with both of you. I've been doing this now for 8 months, and until probably this week, I doubt any of my neighbors even know. And I really feel like it's not about knowing, it's about screening and finding the right guests for your place and taking those precautions ahead of time and setting the expectations and having good communication. And those hosts that don't communicate well are probably the ones you're hearing the complaints from.
Well, very quickly, because we only have 10 seconds left. So what can Airbnb do with aldermen here in Chicago to get those regulations, to get this, to perfect this house sharing business?
I think we have to work together on the quality of life issues, and maybe that's increasing the tools in the toolbox for the city of Chicago to enforce nuisance and go after folks who are nuisance.
Okay,
because I think that's the issue.
we got to go. Michelle, we got to go. I'm sorry. So Will Burns, Valerie Landis, Michelle Smith, and Brian Hopkins, thank you so much.